The night before my 65th birthday, my deceased wife came to me in a dream and whispered urgently, "Don't wear the shirt from Cole and Tessa Joshua. Please don't wear that shirt." I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. It was true. My son Cole and his wife Tessa had recently given me a beautiful dress shirt for my birthday celebration. When I examined it closely the next day, I discovered something that made my heart stop. Before we dive deeper into this chilling story, I'm curious. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city and the time in the comments below. I'd love to know how many of you out there have learned to trust those mysterious feelings that something just isn't right. 3:17 in the morning. The digital clock's red glow pierced through darkness as I jolted awake, gasping like I'd been underwater. My pajamas stuck to my back, drenched in cold sweat, despite Austin's comfortable spring night. Savannah had been standing at the foot of our bed, as vivid as the day we married 43 years ago. Her silver hair shimmered in the moonlight, and those warm brown eyes that had guided me through decades now burned with desperate urgency. "Joshua," she'd said in that familiar Texas drawl, "you listen to me now. Don't wear that shirt Cole and Tessa brought you. Do you hear me, honey? Don't you dare put on that blue dress shirt." 3 times she'd repeated those words, each time more insistent before fading into shadows like morning mist. I sat up, trembling hands running through my gray hair. The house creaked around me with familiar sounds. 28 years in this Westlake neighborhood, yet tonight everything felt different. Through the window, the Hendersons' porch light cast eerie shadows across their lawn. 2 weeks ago, Cole and Tessa had arrived for Sunday dinner with their gift. The presentation was elaborate. Expensive department store box, tissue paper, the works. My daughter-in-law had been unusually animated. Her blonde hair, perfect designer handbag clutched like armor. "Dad, this is for your big day," Cole had announced, green eyes bright with what I'd thought was genuine affection. The shirt was stunning. Deep navy blue with subtle pinstripes, Egyptian cotton that felt like silk. Tessa picked it out special. She said it would bring out your eyes. Tessa had nodded enthusiastically, manicured hands gesturing. "We wanted something really special, Joshua. 65 is a milestone. You'll look so distinguished at the party." Now in the pre-dawn darkness, their insistence seemed different. Why had Tessa been so specific about the fabric, the fit, how it would photograph under restaurant lighting? Why had Cole mentioned 3 separate times that I absolutely must wear it to tomorrow's celebration at the Riverside Grill? I padded to the kitchen, passing family photos lining the hallway. Cole's graduation, his wedding to Tessa 5 years ago, holidays spanning decades of what I'd believed was genuine happiness. At the sink, I filled a glass with water, the cool liquid doing nothing for the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. 47 years of marriage had taught me to trust Savannah's instincts, even when they defied logic. She'd warned me about business partners who later embezzled funds, about neighbors whose friendly facades hid darker intentions, about investments that seemed too good to be true. But this was our son. Outside, Austin began its slow awakening. Garbage trucks rumbled in the distance, early commuters started their engines. Normal sounds of a normal Tuesday morning, yet nothing felt normal anymore. Savannah's voice echoed with crystalline clarity, carrying the same conviction that had guided every major family decision we'd ever made together. Even in death, she was trying to protect me. When morning came, I tried to push the dream away, but Savannah's voice kept echoing in my mind as I made my way to the kitchen. The aroma of coffee and scrambled eggs filled our kitchen as Cole and Tessa prepared what they called a perfect birthday breakfast. My son moved between stove and counter, while Tessa arranged orange juice in crystal glasses, insisting on our best tableware. "Happy birthday, Dad." Cole set Eggs Benedict before me with a flourish. 65 years young today. Tessa perched on her chair, designer workout clothes, immaculate despite the early hour. Her blue eyes studied my every expression. We wanted to make this morning special before tonight's celebration. I forced a smile, though Savannah's warning still echoed in my mind. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Nonsense." Cole waved off my protest, settling into his chair. "Speaking of tonight," his expression grew serious, almost urgent. "Dad, you absolutely must wear that blue dress shirt we picked out. It's perfect for your big day." Something in his tone made my fork pause. There was an insistence there, a pressure that felt completely wrong coming from my son. Tessa leaned forward, manicured fingers drumming against the oak table. You did try it on, didn't you, Joshua? We had it tailored specifically. The color will photograph beautifully under the restaurant's lighting. I haven't had a chance yet, I replied, carefully watching their reactions. Cole's jaw tightened while Tessa's smile seemed to freeze. Well, you should definitely do that today. She pressed her voice, carrying a note I couldn't identify. We want everything absolutely perfect for tonight. The shirt, the celebration, everything. My phone buzzed, displaying Jade's name. I welcomed the interruption. Hey, sweetheart, I answered, stepping toward the window. Happy birthday? Daddy? Jade's warm voice eased some tension in my chest. We're 20 minutes out. Leo's been asking about Grandpa's birthday cake since we left. I chuckled, picturing my 4-year-old grandson. Tell him Grandpa can't wait to see him, too. Knox wanted me to ask about dress code for tonight. Should he wear a suit? Business casual should be fine. As I hung up, I caught Cole and Tessa exchanging a look. Brief, barely a second, but something passed between them that made my stomach clench. Everything all right with Jade? Cole asked, tone carefully casual. She's fine. They'll be here soon. I studied my son's face. When had those worry lines appeared around his eyes? When had his smile started looking so forced? Tessa cleared her throat. Joshua, about that shirt? It really would mean a lot if you wore it tonight. We put so much thought into choosing it, and Cole was so excited about surprising you. There it was again. That underlying pressure, that insistence feeling more like a demand than a request. In 35 years of being Cole's father, I'd never heard him speak with such urgency about something as simple as clothing. I remembered the Sunday they'd presented the gift, how Tessa had insisted on staying while I opened it, watching my reaction with sharp eyes. How Cole had repeated 3 times that I simply had to wear it. Of course, I heard myself saying, though every instinct screamed warnings. I'm sure it'll be perfect. Cole's shoulders visibly relaxed, and Tessa's smile finally reached her eyes. They finished breakfast with renewed chatter about evening plans, restaurant reservations, the guest list. Normal conversation that should have felt comfortable, but instead left me feeling like I was watching actors perform a rehearsed scene. After Cole and Tessa left for work, the house fell silent, and that's when Savannah's warning began to feel less like a dream and more like a premonition. The afternoon stretched endlessly, each tick of the grandfather clock echoing through the empty house. Jade wouldn't arrive until 6, and the birthday celebration wasn't until 7. Hours of solitude filled with nothing but Savannah's persistent warning. I tried reading the Austin American Statesman, but the words blurred meaninglessly. My mind kept circling back to breakfast, to the strange intensity in Cole's voice when he'd insisted I wear that particular shirt. By 3 o'clock, I couldn't stand it anymore. The walk to our master bedroom felt longer than usual. Our walk-in closet still smelled faintly of Savannah's lavender sachets, a ghost of comfort that today only sharpened my unease. The shirt hung where I'd left it 2 weeks ago, protected by a clear garment bag between my Sunday suit and navy blazer. Even through the plastic, the deep blue fabric shimmered, with quality subtle pinstripes catching light from the overhead fixture. I unzipped the bag, carefully recognizing the weight of expensive Egyptian cotton. This was easily a $300 shirt, maybe more. The kind of extravagant gift that should have filled me with gratitude, not this gnawing anxiety. Carrying it to the window where afternoon sunlight streamed through, I examined it closely. The craftsmanship was flawless. Perfectly aligned seams, mother-of-pearl buttons, French cuffs, speaking of old-world elegance. Everything screamed sophistication and thoughtful selection. So why did looking at it make my skin crawl? I spread the shirt across our king-sized bed, the same bed where Savannah had appeared hours earlier. The fabric lay smooth and pristine, showing no signs of tampering. Yet something felt wrong. Methodically, I ran my hands along the shirt's surface, starting with the shoulders and working down. The fabric felt consistent weight, even throughout the body and sleeves. But when my fingers reached the collar area, I paused. There was something different there, not visible but unmistakable to touch. A slight thickness, as if extra material had been sewn between the outer fabric and inner lining. Subtle, barely noticeable unless you were specifically looking, but definitely present. My heart began pounding as I examined the area more carefully. The collar looked normal, stitching appeared professional and undisturbed. Yet that extra thickness remained concentrated in a small section just behind where the collar would rest against my neck. I stood back staring at the innocent-looking garment. Was I losing my mind? Was grief and age making me paranoid? About a perfectly normal dress shirt, Cole was my son, my flesh and blood. Tessa had never shown me anything but respect and affection. But Savannah's voice whispered through my memory with absolute clarity, "Don't wear that shirt." In 47 years of marriage, my wife had never steered me wrong. Not once. She'd warned me about contractors trying to overcharge us, insisted I get second opinions on medical treatments, convinced me to avoid business partnerships that would have cost my retirement savings. Savannah had possessed intuition that bordered on supernatural, an ability to sense danger I'd learned to trust completely. Even death, it seemed, hadn't diminished that gift. Standing in our bedroom, surrounded by 43 years of shared memories, I made my decision. If there was even the slightest chance something was wrong with this shirt, I had to know. My hands trembled as I reached for the sewing scissors in Savannah's old sewing box. If I was wrong, I'd ruin Cole's expensive gift. But if I was right, the small sewing scissors felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hands as I positioned them against the shirt's collar. Savannah's old Singer sewing box sat open beside me on the bed, its contents scattered like surgical instruments, thread spools, measuring tape, the tiny silver thimble she'd worn smooth with decades of use. I took a steadying breath and made the first cut. The fabric parted easily under the sharp blade, revealing the shirt's inner construction. At first, everything looked normal. Standard interfacing, professional stitching, quality materials throughout. But as I carefully widened the small opening, something unexpected tumbled out. Fine white powder, delicate as confectioner's sugar, spilled across our dark blue bedspread in a thin stream. I jerked back instinctively, the scissors clattering to the hardwood floor as more of the substance continued to fall from the hidden pocket I'd inadvertently opened. For a moment I could only stare. The powder was odorless, almost weightless, settling into the fabric's weave like freshly fallen snow. There was perhaps a tablespoon's worth, maybe less, but its presence in my birthday gift sent ice water through my veins. This wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately sewn this substance into the collar of my shirt, concealing it so expertly that even a careful examination hadn't revealed its presence. Only Savannah's warning had led me to this discovery. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, scrolling through contacts, until I found the name I needed. Doctor. Wren Hunt had been my friend since college, a brilliant chemist who'd spent 30 years analyzing everything from industrial compounds to pharmaceutical ingredients. If anyone could tell me what this powder was, it would be Wren. "Joshua?" His voice carried surprise when he answered. "This is unexpected. How are you holding up?" "Wren, I need your help." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I found something, and I think someone's trying to hurt me." The line went quiet for a moment. When Wren spoke again, his tone had shifted to professional concern. "What kind of something?" "White powder. Fine, like flour or cornstarch. It was sewn into a shirt collar, hidden where no one would find it unless they were specifically looking." "Jesus, Joshua. Don't touch it anymore. Don't even breathe near it until we know what it is. Can you get a sample to my lab? How much do you need?" "Just a pinch sealed in a plastic bag. But Joshua—" His voice carried a weight that made my stomach clench. "Be extremely careful handling it. If someone went to the trouble of hiding powder in clothing, it's not baby powder." The drive to Wren's laboratory at the University of Texas felt endless, though the clock on my dashboard showed only 15 minutes had passed. I'd carefully collected a small sample using a plastic spoon, sealing it in a Ziploc bag while holding my breath. The rest of the powder remained scattered across our bedspread. Evidence of what I was beginning to understand might be an attempt on my life. Wren met me at the building's side entrance, his usually cheerful demeanor replaced by grim professionalism. At 63, he still maintained the focused intensity that had made him one of the Southwest's most respected forensic chemists. "Let me see it," he said without preamble, leading me through sterile hallways to his private laboratory. I handed over the sample, watching as he examined it under a magnifying glass before transferring a tiny portion to a glass slide. The next 30 minutes felt like hours as he worked with various instruments, occasionally muttering to himself or making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up from his microscope, his face pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lighting. "Joshua," he said quietly, "this is poison. Contact poison specifically designed to be absorbed through the skin when mixed with perspiration and body heat." The words hit me like physical blows. What would it do? Worn against your neck for several hours, especially during physical activity or emotional stress. Like a birthday party where you'd be moving around, talking, laughing, maybe dancing. It would cause gradual absorption. First, you'd feel slightly dizzy, maybe nauseous. Your heart rate would increase. Within a few hours? He paused, clearly struggling with what he had to tell me. Within a few hours, what? Cardiac arrest. It would look completely natural. A 65-year-old man having a heart attack during his birthday celebration. No one would question it, especially if you'd been drinking wine, eating rich food, experiencing the normal excitement of a party. As Ren explained how the poison would have killed me slowly during the party, making it look like a heart attack, one thought consumed me. My own son wanted me dead. Ren didn't waste time with comfort. He pulled out his phone and dialed from memory. "Cruz, it's Ren Hunt. I need you at my lab immediately. Attempted murder. Poison. The victim is sitting right here." 20 minutes later, Detective Cruzvale walked through the laboratory doors with measured steps. Younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp brown eyes and focused attention that explained why Wren had called him first. "Mr. Ford," he said, extending a firm handshake, "before we go further, I need you to know your son Cole has been on our radar for 3 months. The words hit like a second punch. "What do you mean?" Cruz settled across from me, pulling out a notebook. "Financial Crimes has been tracking a cryptocurrency scam that cost Austin investors over $15 million. Your son lost $2.5 million in that scheme. $2.5 million. I stared, unable to process it. Cole doesn't have that kind of money. He borrowed it from very dangerous people, the kind who don't accept apologies as payment. My mind reeled. Cole had never mentioned troubles, never asked for help. How long? Initial investment 8 months ago. When the Bitcoin venture proved fraudulent, his creditors gave him 6 months to repay. That deadline passed 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, when Cole and Tessa had given me the shirt. Detective, I have life insurance. $3 million. Cruz nodded grimly. We know. Cole's the primary beneficiary. Your daughter gets less, but the bulk goes to your son. The pieces fell into sickening place. My birthday celebration publicly attended. The insistence on that specific shirt. If the poison had worked, I would have collapsed at the Riverside Grill, surrounded by witnesses to my apparent good health moments before my heart attack. What about Tessa? Cruz's expression darkened. That's where this gets interesting. Tessa Morrison has a record. Insurance fraud in Oklahoma 5 years ago. Charges dropped, insufficient evidence, but the pattern fits. She married an older man, convinced him to increase life insurance, and 6 months later, he died in an apparent accidental fall. She killed someone before. We could never prove it. Looked accidental, she was convincing as the grieving widow. But when we investigated your son's troubles, her name triggered red flags. I thought about Tessa's behavior that morning, her nervous energy, how she'd watched my every reaction discussing the shirt. Had she suggested this plan? Had Cole been desperate enough to agree to murdering his father? Mr. Ford, we believe your daughter-in-law is the mastermind. Your son's in serious trouble, probably terrified, but Tessa has experience with this scheme. She likely convinced him it was the only way out. So what now? Cruz leaned forward. We catch them in the act. You'll attend your birthday party tonight exactly as planned. But instead of wearing their poisoned shirt, wear something else. When they realize their plan failed, they'll likely panic and reveal themselves. You want me as bait? You'll be completely safe. Undercover officers will be positioned throughout the restaurant. The moment they show suspicious behavior, we move in. I sat in that laboratory surrounded by tools that had just saved my life, trying to imagine facing my son across a dinner table, knowing he'd planned to watch me die. Detective Vale laid out the plan I would attend my birthday party, as scheduled, but wearing a different shirt. When Cole and Tessa realized their plan had failed, they would likely panic and reveal themselves. By 5:30, Detective Cruz's plan was in motion. 3 undercover officers would blend into the Riverside Grill's evening crowd, one posing as a business diner, another as a celebrating couple, the third at the bar. Each had clear sightlines to our table and radio contact with crews monitoring from the parking lot. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting a simple white dress shirt I'd owned for years. It felt strange wearing something so familiar for what should have been special, but the contrast would be unmistakable. Cole and Tessa had been very specific about the blue shirt. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock, followed by little feet racing across hardwood floors. "Grandpa, Grandpa." Leo's voice echoed with pure 4-year-old joy. I scooped him into a hug that felt more precious than ever. "There's my favorite grandson," I said, holding him tight. "I helped Mommy pick your present," Leo announced proudly. "It's a surprise, but it's really, really good." Jade appeared, her auburn hair catching evening light. "Happy birthday, Dad," she said, embracing me with the kind of hug that conveyed everything words couldn't. Knox followed with a wrapped package and easy smile. "Looking sharp, Joshua. Ready for the big celebration?" The drive to the Riverside Grill felt surreal. Leo chattered about birthday cake while Jade discussed seating arrangements. Normal family conversation that should have filled me with contentment instead felt like voices from another life. The restaurant buzzed with evening energy. Our private dining room was decorated with balloons and flowers, a happy 65th birthday banner across one wall. Cole and Tessa arrived shortly after us, both impeccably dressed, with bright smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Cole wore charcoal gray, Tessa a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most monthly salaries. "Dad." Cole's embrace felt normal, familiar. For a moment I almost convinced myself Detective Cruz had made some terrible mistake. Then his eyes found my shirt. The change was subtle, but unmistakable. Confusion followed by something like panic. "Dad," he said carefully, "where's the blue shirt, the one Tess and I picked out?" "Oh, that," I replied lightly. I decided to go with something more comfortable. "You know how I am with new clothes." Tessa stepped forward, her smile now painted on. "But Joshua, we chose that shirt specifically for tonight. The color, the fit, everything was perfect for photographs. I'm sure this will photograph just fine," I said, watching as she exchanged a worried glance with Cole. More guests arrived, colleagues, neighbors, old friends who'd known Savannah and me for decades. The room filled with laughter and conversation, the kind of celebration that should have marked a milestone birthday. But I watched Cole and Tessa instead. They stood near the windows, engaged in increasingly urgent, whispered conversation. Tessa's hands moved expressively, her agitation clear in every gesture. Cole kept running fingers through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. "Everything all right?" I asked, approaching them during a lull in greetings. "Of course, Dad," Cole replied too quickly. "Just discussing the evening schedule." Tessa's laugh sounded forced. "We want everything perfect for your special day." As dinner service began, their anxiety became impossible to hide. Tessa barely touched her salmon, constantly checking her phone. Cole excused himself twice for business calls, returning each time more agitated. The undercover officers played their roles perfectly. The business dinner patron occasionally glanced our way while reviewing documents. The anniversary couple shared quiet conversation and wine. The solo diner at the bar seemed absorbed in his phone but positioned to see everything. As the party continued and more guests arrived, I watched my son and daughter-in-law grow increasingly agitated. It was time to end this charade. The moment came during dessert, as our server was distributing slices of the chocolate birthday cake Leo had helped choose. The room buzzed with comfortable conversation, guests sharing stories about my construction company days and reminiscing about Savannah. It was exactly the kind of warm family celebration that should have marked this milestone. Instead, I was about to destroy it all. I stood slowly tapping my wine glass with a fork until the conversations died down. 23 faces turned toward me expectantly. Friends, neighbors, colleagues who'd come to celebrate what they believed was simply a man's 65th birthday. "Thank you all for being here tonight." I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "Your presence means more to me than you know, especially since losing Savannah." Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the room. At the far end of the table, Cole and Tessa sat, frozen their faces, masks of forced attention. And I had planned to give a different speech tonight. I continued meeting my son's eyes across the room, Something about gratitude and family, about the blessings of reaching this age surrounded by people I love. Cole's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Tessa's knuckles were white where she gripped her napkin. But tonight I discovered something that changed everything. I paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the suddenly silent room. I discovered that my son and daughter-in-law tried to murder me. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps echoed through the dining room chairs, scraped against hardwood floors as guests turned to stare at Cole and Tessa. Someone, I think it was our neighbor Mrs. Patterson, actually screamed. "Dad, what are you talking about?" Cole shot to his feet, his face flushing red. "Have you lost your mind? This is ridiculous. Is it?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small plastic bag containing the white powder Wren had analyzed. "This is contact poison coal. It was sewn into the collar of that blue dress shirt you and Tessa insisted I wear tonight." Tessa had gone completely pale, her designer makeup unable to hide the terror in her eyes. "Joshua, you're obviously confused. Maybe we should get you to a doctor." The plan was simple. I continued, ignoring her protests. I would wear the poison shirt to my birthday party. The substance would absorb through my skin over the course of the evening, causing what would appear to be a natural heart attack. A 65-year-old man celebrating with rich food and wine getting excited, no one would question it. "This is insane." Cole's voice cracked with desperation. "Dad, you're having some kind of breakdown. We would never—" $2.5 million, Cole. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. "That's how much you lost in that cryptocurrency scam. That's how much you owe to people who don't accept apologies as payment." The color drained from my son's face. Around the room, our guests sat in stunned silence, some covering their mouths in horror, others staring in disbelief. "Ian, $3 million, I continued relentlessly, "is exactly how much my life insurance policy is worth. With me dead, you could pay your debts and still have money left over." That's when Tessa broke. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this?" She screamed, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Cole was going to die. They were going to kill him if he didn't pay." What choice did we have? Tessa shut up. Cole lunged toward her, but it was too late. "It was my idea." "Okay," she sobbed, her composure completely shattered. "I knew how to do it. I'd done it before. It would have looked natural. No one would have suspected anything. We were desperate." "Oh!" That's when Detective Cruz and his officers entered the dining room, their badges clearly visible as they moved with practiced efficiency toward Cole and Tessa. "Cole Ford, Tessa Ford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder," Cruz announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. Cole didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, but his eyes never left mine. When the metal secured his hands behind his back, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face and whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen." 3 months later, I sat in Travis County Courthouse, watching my son receive his sentence. The judge's words echoed, "Cole Ford, 15 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Tessa Ford, 20 years as the primary architect of this conspiracy." Cole turned to look at me before the bailiff led him away. His orange jumpsuit hung loose. He'd lost weight during the legal proceedings. Our eyes met, and I saw the little boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, who'd built model airplanes at our kitchen table. Tessa showed no vulnerability. She kept her chin-high blonde hair perfectly styled, despite facing 2 decades in prison, maintaining the cold composure that had nearly cost me my life. The weeks following were the darkest since losing Savannah. Jade moved in temporarily with Knox and Leo taking leave from her nursing job. "Dad, you can't blame yourself," she said one evening as we watched Leo chase fireflies. "Cole made his choices. Tessa manipulated him, but he still chose to go along. I knew she was right intellectually, but kept circling back to the same questions. Where had I failed as a father? How had I missed the signs?" 6 months after sentencing, I decided to visit Cole in prison. The Huntsville unit was concrete walls, razor wire, and institutional grimness. Cole looked older when they brought him to the visiting room, gray showing at his temples. "Dad," he whispered, "I didn't think you'd come." "I wasn't sure I would either," I admitted. After minutes of silence, Cole began speaking in a rush, as if he'd been holding back for months. "It was never supposed to happen. I was so scared, Dad. These people weren't just threatening me. They knew where Jade lived, where Leo went to preschool. They had pictures. He told me about the cryptocurrency investment, the smooth-talking broker who'd convinced him to leverage everything. When the scheme collapsed, he owed money to people who collected debts with violence. Tessa said she knew a way out. She told me about her first husband, how it had worked before. She made it sound so simple, so clean. You'd just go to sleep at the party. But it would have been murder, Cole, I said quietly. Your father's murder. Looking at this broken man who'd once been my pride, I felt anger loosen, replaced by pity. Cole, I said, reaching across to touch his hand, I forgive you. He looked up with red-rimmed eyes. How can you possibly forgive me? Because you're still my son. Because forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I choose to carry. 2 weeks later, I drove to Austin Memorial Gardens, where Savannah rested. I brought white roses and sat on our bench. Thank you, I said aloud. Thank you for the warning. Thank you for saving me. A gentle breeze stirred the oak trees, and for a moment I could have sworn I felt her hand on my shoulder. Standing at Savannah's grave 6 months later, I finally understood that love sometimes means protecting those we care about, even from beyond. Today, 2 years later, I live in a small house just 10 minutes from Jade's family. Every Sunday, Leo runs through my front door with the same boundless energy calling, Grandpa, as he shows me his latest drawings or tells me about his adventures at school. These moments have become my anchor, reminding me that life continues, that love endures even after betrayal tries to destroy it. Looking back on this true story, I realize how dangerously naive I was. For 65 years, I believed that family meant safety, that blood ties guaranteed loyalty. I trusted without question, loved without boundaries, and nearly died because of it. Don't be like me. Don't assume that sharing DNA means sharing values. Even those closest to us can harbor darkness we never imagined. The hardest lesson I learned is that sometimes the people who know us best are the ones most capable of hurting us. They know our weaknesses, our routines, our blind spots. Cole knew I would never suspect him. Tessa knew I would wear whatever gift they gave me because that's who I am, a man who trusts his family completely. But here's what I want you to understand from these grandpa stories. Betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. Yes, it changes you forever. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the shadows that can hide behind familiar faces, but I haven't let it make me bitter or closed off from love. God has a way of protecting us even when we can't protect ourselves. Savannah's warning came from beyond this world, a reminder that love transcends death, and that we're never truly alone in our darkest moments. That supernatural intervention saved my life and taught me that faith and intuition often speak louder than logic. If you're living through your own betrayal right now, know this healing is possible. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't about excusing what they did. It's about refusing to carry their poison in your heart. Cole will serve his time, and I've made my peace with that, but I won't let his choices steal my remaining years or my capacity to love. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons, reminders that life can change in an instant. This true story nearly ended with my death, but instead became a testament to survival, to the power of trusting your instincts, and to the mysterious ways love protects us. Trust your dreams, listen to your gut, and remember that sometimes the most important true story you'll ever hear is the one that teaches you to question everything, even family. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share your own experiences with family betrayal or supernatural warnings. Your story might save someone else's life. And if these grandpa stories resonate with you, please subscribe to Sweet Revenge for more powerful true stories that remind us all how precious and fragile life really is. Yeah, after 5 years in a coma, I couldn't wait to surprise my wife Carmen at Torres Construction, my company. I walked through the front doors with a huge smile, ready to shout, "Surprise!" But the words died in my throat when I heard a stranger's voice echo through the lobby. "Scrub that floor properly, or you know what'll happen." Through the hallway, I saw Carmen on her knees, wearing a janitor's uniform, frantically cleaning the marble floors of our own building. Who dared to force my wife to work as a janitor like this? I would make them pay. Before I reveal what really happened during those 5 years, I was unconscious. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching this from and what time it is there. The first thing I remember after 5 years of darkness was Dr. Sebastian Vale's voice, cracking with disbelief. "Helen, get over here right now. This is impossible." They stood over my hospital bed like I was some kind of miracle, which I guess I was. After 5 years in a vegetative state, Denver General had written me off long ago. "Mr. Torres." "Doctor," Vale said, his hands trembling, "you've been unconscious since 2018. We're calling it a medical miracle." As consciousness returned, memories flooded back like a warm embrace. Sophia's giggles echoing through our Denver home as she chased our golden retriever. Carmen's soft humming while preparing Sunday dinners, brushing flour from her apron with that beautiful smile. Those were the golden days at Torres Construction when I'd built the company from nothing into Denver's most trusted construction firm. Every evening I'd come home covered in sawdust, and Carmen would tease me about tracking dirt through her clean house. Sophia would run into my arms, not caring how dirty my work clothes were. The moment I was cleared, I knew exactly where to go. Torres Construction had been my life's work, and after 5 years away, I couldn't wait to surprise my employees and see Carmen's face light up when I walked in. I signed myself out against Dr. Vale's protests and caught a taxi straight to 32nd Avenue. But something felt wrong the moment I stepped out of that cab. The building looked the same, but there was a new sign where Torres Construction used to be. Cross Maintenance and Cleaning Services in bold black letters. My stomach dropped, but I told myself there had to be an explanation. I pushed through the front doors when I heard a stranger's harsh voice echoing from inside. "Scrub that floor properly or you know what'll happen." I followed the sound down the hallway, and what I saw stopped my heart cold. Carmen, my beautiful, dignified Carmen, was on her hands and knees scrubbing toilet bowls with a worn brush. She wore a faded gray uniform with cross maintenance stitched across the back, her once manicured hands red and cracked from cleaning chemicals. This was the woman who used to organize charity galas, who commanded respect in every room. Now she was being treated like hired help in our own building. "Dad!" Damien's voice made me spin around. My son-in-law appeared in the doorway, his face quickly shifting from surprise to what looked like genuine joy. "Oh my God, you're awake? This is incredible." He rushed forward with arms spread wide, but something flickered in his eyes for just a split second. Something that didn't match his enthusiastic smile. "Carmen, look. Dad's finally come home to us." Carmen looked up from her scrubbing terror, unmistakable in her eyes. She scrambled to her feet, dropping the brush with a clatter. When she leaned in for what looked like a welcoming hug, her whispered words chilled me to the bone. "Caspian, pretend you don't remember anything, or we'll all be in danger." That night, Carmen drove us home in complete silence, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. The house I'd built 15 years ago on Cherry Creek Drive still stood, but everything felt wrong. The front garden Carmen used to tend was overgrown with weeds, paint peeling from shutters, and the porch swing where Sophia read bedtime stories hung crooked on rusted chains. This wasn't the warm family home I remembered. It felt cold, like happiness had been systematically drained away. Inside was worse. Expensive furniture I didn't recognize filled our living room, while family photos had been replaced with generic artwork. The kitchen where Carmen used to bake cookies looked sterile and unused. Everything screamed of Damien's control, suffocating the life out of our sanctuary. Carmen collapsed onto our old couch and buried her face in her hands. When she looked up, tears streamed down her cheeks as the horrible story poured out. "The medical bills, Caspian," she whispered, glancing nervously toward the stairs. "After your accident, they were astronomical. Hundreds of thousands for specialized care, experimental treatments. I had no idea how to handle business finances. You always took care of everything." Her voice cracked. "Damien stepped in, said he'd help manage Torres Construction temporarily. Then he told me the company couldn't afford your medical expenses anymore." She wiped her nose with shaking hands. "He said if I wanted to keep you alive, I'd have to work for his cleaning service. Cross maintenance. He took over all our contracts, told clients Torres Construction was restructuring. I had no choice. Scrub floors or watch you die in that hospital bed." The cruelty hit me like a physical blow. My son-in-law had turned my wife into his servant, using my life as leverage. "What about Sophia?" I asked, dreading the answer. Carmen's face crumpled. "She's been homeschooled for 3 years. Damien said it was better while you were sick, but really he wanted control. She can't have friends over no sleepovers or school events. He told her if she complained or contacted anyone outside the family, he'd send her to live with strangers and she'd never see us again." Soft footsteps on the stairs made us both look up. Sophia appeared at the landing and my heart shattered. My little girl, once round-cheeked and energetic, now looked thin and pale. Her bright eyes were filled with wariness no 12-year-old should carry. She took one tentative step down, meeting my gaze with such longing it made my chest ache. I started to stand, but she shook her head quickly and retreated upstairs. Her bedroom door closing echoed like a gunshot. Carmen watched with tears in her eyes. "She wants to run to you so badly, but she's terrified. Damien's made sure of that." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Caspian, there's something else about your accident. The police report never made sense. You were such a careful driver, the weather was perfect that day. But the investigation closed so quickly and Damien seemed to know details he shouldn't have known." She grabbed my hands desperately. "There's something else you need to know about your accident, Caspian. It wasn't really an accident." The next morning, Carmen's words echoed in my mind. If my accident wasn't random, someone had deliberately tried to kill me. As I sat staring at coffee, I couldn't drink. A name surfaced from my memories. Warren Mitchell. He'd been our head of vehicle maintenance at Taurus Construction for 8 years, with access to every truck and my personal vehicle. His sudden resignation right after my accident now seemed suspicious rather than coincidental. Finding Warren took most of the day. His apartment was empty, phone disconnected, and former employees hadn't heard from him in years. Finally, a bartender on Colfax Avenue mentioned seeing someone matching his description at the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar near the South Platte River. The place was exactly what I expected. Dim lighting, cracked vinyl booths, and the smell of stale beer and broken dreams. I found Warren hunched over whiskey in the corner, looking like he'd aged 20 years in 5. "Jesus Christ," he whispered when he saw me, his glass trembling. "Caspian, they said you'd never wake up." The Warren I remembered had been clean-cut and reliable. This man was hollow-eyed and unshaven, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in days. I sat across from him, keeping my voice low. "Warren, I need to ask about my accident. My wife thinks it wasn't random." The color drained from his face, and his hand shook so badly he put down his drink. "Oh, God," he moaned, burying his face in his palms. "I've been waiting 5 years for this conversation." Tears started streaming down his cheeks as he looked up at me. "Caspian, I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry for what I did to you. I've destroyed my entire life thinking about it every single day. Please, please forgive me." His voice broke completely as he sobbed. "I never meant for it to go that far. I swear on my mother's grave I thought it was just supposed to scare you." The words poured out like water through a broken dam after his desperate apology. "Damien approached me 3 weeks before your accident, offered me $50,000 cash. At first I thought he was joking, but he showed me bank statements. The money was real." My blood turned to ice as Warren continued. "He wanted me to tamper with your brake lines, make it look like mechanical failure. Said you'd been drinking heavily, that the family was worried. He convinced me it was an intervention just to scare you into getting help." Warren's voice cracked. "But when I loosened those brake fittings, I knew it wasn't about scaring anyone. Those brakes would fail completely on the first steep hill." The full scope of Damien's betrayal hit me like a sledgehammer. "He planned this from the beginning," I said. "The accident taking over the company, controlling my family. It was all calculated." Warren nodded miserably. "After the crash, when they said you might never wake up, I realized what I'd done. I'd helped him commit attempted murder. I quit the next day, couldn't stand being around Taurus Construction. I've been drinking myself to death since, trying to forget." "Warren, do you have any proof? Anything that could prove Damien paid you?" Warren's eyes lit up with desperate hope. Yes, I do. But not here." He stood unsteadily. "It's all back at my place. A storage unit on Federal Boulevard. I kept everything hidden there. Bank records, recordings, photos, everything. He grabbed my arm urgently. Come with me right now. I'll show you everything. I'll testify against him, Mr. Torres. I can't live with this guilt anymore. I have everything we need to destroy him. With Warren's evidence secured, we knew we had the ammunition to destroy Damien, but I needed professional guidance to use it effectively. Warren suggested Maxwell Stone, a prominent attorney, whose downtown office occupied the top floor of Republic Plaza. Stone had built his reputation taking down corrupt executives, and had never lost a corporate fraud case. Maxwell Stone was exactly what I'd expected. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He spread Warren's evidence across his conference table like a general planning a military campaign. Gentlemen, he said after examining the bank records and recorded phone conversations, this is the most airtight case of attempted murder and corporate fraud I've seen in 25 years. He held up an audio recording where Damien's voice was crystal clear, discussing brake tampering. This alone would put him away for 15 to 20 years. Add the financial records showing systematic embezzlement from Torres Construction, and we're looking at multiple felony convictions. Stone leaned back with a predatory smile. Not only will we get your company back, Mr. Torres, but we'll ensure Cross spends decades in federal prison. Warren shifted nervously. What about my involvement? I actually sabotaged the brakes. Stone waved dismissively. You'll testify under immunity as a cooperating witness. Your cooperation will keep you out of prison, though you'll face probation and community service. Our next stop was Denver Police Department on Cherokee Street, where Detective Troy Anderson reviewed our evidence with methodical precision. Anderson was stocky with graying temples and the weathered look of someone who'd seen every kind of human cruelty. This is solid gold, he said, tapping the financial documents. Attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement. We can arrest Cross tonight. But Stone had a better idea. Detective, what if we let Cross hang himself publicly? First, tomorrow, Torres will call an emergency board meeting. Warren appears as a surprise witness, and will give Cross one chance to confess and return everything voluntarily. Anderson nodded approvingly. When he refuses, which he will, we'll have everything on record. If he tries to run or destroy evidence, we add obstruction of justice. The strategy was brilliant. We'd confront Damien in his moment of triumph, surrounded by the company he'd stolen with Warren's testimony, destroying his lies piece by piece. Stone would be there as legal counsel, Anderson would have backup units ready outside, and Warren would deliver the knockout blow with recorded evidence. That evening, sitting in our living room on Cherry Creek Drive, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 5 years. Genuine hope. Tomorrow I would face the man who'd tried to murder me, who'd enslaved my wife and terrorized my daughter. But this time, I wouldn't be helpless in a hospital bed. This time I'd have justice on my side. Carmen squeezed my hand as we watched the sunset. Are you ready for this? I thought about Warren's remorse, Stone's confidence, and Anderson's authority. Tomorrow we take back what's rightfully ours, Carmen. Justice will be served. The Torres Construction boardroom had never seen anything like it. I walked through those familiar glass doors at exactly 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, wearing my best charcoal suit and carrying myself like the CEO I'd always been. Warren followed close behind, clutching a briefcase full of evidence that would change everything. The board members, men who'd worked with me for years before my accident, looked up in stunned silence as I took my seat at the head of the conference table. Damien sat frozen in my old chair, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and growing terror as his eyes locked onto Warren. What is he doing here? Damien stammered, his usual smooth confidence cracking like thin ice. The color drained from his face as Warren set down his briefcase and began pulling out manila folders. Gentlemen, I announced to the 5 board members, I'd like to introduce some new evidence regarding my accident 5 years ago. Maxwell Stone stepped into the room behind us, his presence adding legal weight to our confrontation. Warren Mitchell, our former head of vehicle maintenance, has something important to share with all of you. Warren's hands trembled as he stood, but his voice grew stronger with each word. 5 years ago, Damien Cross paid me $50,000 to sabotage Mr. Torres's brake system. The boardroom erupted in gasps and angry murmurs. Warren held up a digital recorder. I have our entire conversation recorded, including his specific instructions on how to make the accident look mechanical. He pressed play, and Damien's voice filled the room with crystal clarity. Make sure those brakes fail completely on the first hill he hits. It needs to look like an accident, Warren. No one can ever trace this back to us. The recording continued for several damning minutes, with Damien discussing payment schedules and cleanup procedures. That's not all. Warren continued spreading bank statements across the table. Here are the wire transfers showing Damien's payments to my account. And these, he held up photographs, show the brake damage before I doctored the repair reports. Damien finally found his voice, but it came out as a desperate whisper. You can't prove anything. Warren's a drunk liar. This is all fabricated. Stone stepped forward with a predatory smile. Mr. Cross, we also have evidence of systematic embezzlement from Torres construction accounts, fraudulent contracts, and identity theft. The FBI will be very interested in your creative bookkeeping. The board members stared at Damien with disgust and horror. Tom Bradley, our longest-serving member, spoke for everyone. Damien, you need to resign immediately and return control of this company to its rightful owner. Cornered and exposed, Damien's shoulders sagged in defeat. With shaking hands, he signed the resignation papers Stone had prepared, officially transferring all authority back to me. The man who tried to murder me, who'd enslaved my wife and terrorized my daughter, was finally stripped of his stolen power. But as Damien gathered his things to leave, his defeated posture straightened into something darker. At the boardroom door, he turned back with eyes full of pure hatred. This isn't over, old man, he snarled, his mask of civility completely gone. You think you've won, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. You'll regret this. The door slammed behind him with such force that the conference table shook. Warren collapsed into his chair, emotionally drained from his confession. The board members sat in stunned silence, processing the revelation that their company had been run by an attempted murderer for 5 years. I should have felt victorious, but Damien's parting words echoed in my mind like a warning. This battle was won, but something told me the war was far from over. The week following our boardroom victory felt like stepping back into a life I'd thought was lost forever. Carmen's transformation was immediate and beautiful. The morning after Damien's resignation, she walked into our bedroom, carrying the gray cross-maintenance uniform she'd been forced to wear for 3 years. Without a word, she tossed it into the fireplace and lit a match. As the fabric burned, tears of relief streamed down her face. I never have to wear that again, she whispered. She threw herself back into being the woman I'd married, organizing our household, cooking elaborate dinners, and becoming the mother Sophia desperately needed. Her laughter returned, filling our house on Cherry Creek Drive with warmth. She started tending her garden again, planting flowers where neglect had left only weeds. The most precious change was watching Sophia emerge from her shell of fear. 3 days after I'd reclaimed Torres construction, she knocked on my office doorframe. Dad, can we talk? For 2 hours, my 12-year-old daughter told me about her nightmare, how Damien had isolated her from friends claiming they were bad influences, how he'd convinced her that speaking to anyone outside the family would result in her being sent away forever. He used to stand outside my bedroom door at night, she said quietly, not saying anything, just listening, making sure I knew he was watching. I kept my voice gentle despite my rage. Sweetheart, that's never going to happen again. You're safe now. Her face lit up with the first genuine smile I'd seen since waking up. Really, I can go back to regular school. Have sleevers. Absolutely. We'll enroll you at Cherry Creek Middle School next month. Our dinner conversations became daily highlights. Sophia would chatter about books she wanted to read, friends she hoped to make, activities she'd missed during isolation. Carmen shared plans for redecorating, erasing every trace of Damien's presence. I found myself laughing more than I had in years. One evening, sitting on our front porch, watching sunset paint, the Rocky Mountains gold and purple, I realized something profound. Torres construction had always felt like my greatest achievement. But with Carmen's head on my shoulder and Sophia reading beside us, I understood my real success was this: my family whole and happy again. Dad, Sophia said, looking up from her book, I'm glad you woke up. Me too, sweetheart. That perfect moment should have been a warning. Happiness this complete felt almost too good to be true. My instincts proved correct when Sophia didn't come home from tutoring Tuesday evening. Carmen called the tutor at 6:30. Sophia had left at 4 o'clock as usual. By 7, when our daughter still hadn't walked through the front door, Carmen's face had gone pale with panic. "Caspian," she said, her voice trembling as she held her phone, "Sophia's not answering her cell phone. It goes straight to voicemail." My blood turned to ice as Damien's parting words echoed in my memory. "You'll regret this." The phone rang at exactly 8:15, cutting through the tense silence in our living room like a blade. Carmen and I both stared at the caller ID showing an unknown number, but we knew who it was before I answered. "Hello, Caspian." Damien's voice was calm, almost cheerful, which made it infinitely more terrifying. "I trust you're wondering where your precious little daughter is right now." My grip tightened on the phone. "If you've heard her, I swear to God, she's perfectly safe," Damien interrupted. "For now, but that could change very quickly depending on your cooperation. You see, our little boardroom theatrics last week were quite embarrassing for me. I've had to make some adjustments to my plans." Carmen grabbed my arm, her face white with terror, as she listened to my side of the conversation. I put the call on speaker so she could hear everything. "What do you want, Damien?" His laugh was cold and mechanical. "I want you to come to Torres Construction, alone. Bring all of Warren's recordings and evidence plus signed documents, transferring the company back to me permanently. You have 1 hour. And if I don't, then Sophia won't be coming home for dinner tomorrow, or ever." The line went quiet for a moment before he continued. "Oh, and Caspian, if I see any police cars, any sign you've contacted authorities, your daughter dies immediately. This is between you and me, now." The call ended, leaving us in devastating silence. Carmen collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. "He's going to kill her. He's going to kill our baby." I knelt beside her, forcing myself to think clearly, despite the panic clawing at my chest. "Carmen, listen to me. We're not helpless here. I have a plan, but I need you to be strong for Sophia." Through her tears, she nodded. "What do you need me to do?" I explained quickly but carefully. "I'm going to Torres Construction, but I'm not going in blind. When I get there and confirm Sophia's location, I'll text you exactly one word. Okay." The moment you receive that text, you wait exactly 15 minutes, then call Detective Anderson immediately. Tell him Damien has Sophia at Torres Construction and that I'm inside trying to negotiate. Why 15 minutes? Why not call right away? Because I need time to get Sophia away from immediate danger. If police sirens start wailing the second I walk in, Damien might panic and hurt her. 15 minutes gives me a chance to assess the situation and hopefully get her to safety. Carmen wiped her eyes, her maternal instincts overriding her fear. What if something goes wrong? What if 15 minutes isn't enough? I kissed her forehead, trying to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. Then Detective Anderson will know exactly where to find us. Either way, this ends tonight. The drive to Torres Construction felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. The industrial district was eerily quiet at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, with only scattered streetlights illuminating empty parking lots and darkened buildings. My own company looked ominous in the darkness, like a trap waiting to spring shut. I parked across the street and pulled out my phone. My hands were steadier than I had expected as I typed the message that would either save my daughter or get us both killed. Okay. The word disappeared into cyberspace, and somewhere across town, Carmen would be starting her own 15-minute countdown. The front entrance was unlocked, which should have been my first warning. I stepped into the lobby I'd walked through thousands of times, but tonight it felt like entering a tomb. The elevator was waiting, doors open, as if Damien had anticipated my every move. The smell hit me the moment the elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, the sharp, acrid odor of natural gas filling the air. My heart hammered against my ribs as I followed the scent down the hallway toward my old office. Through the glass doors I could see a single light burning, and there, tied to a chair in the center of the room, was Sophia. I pushed through the glass doors into what used to be my office, and Sophia's tear-filled eyes met mine across the room. She was tied to a chair with thick rope duct tape over her mouth, but she was alive. That was all that mattered in that moment. "Welcome to your retirement party, Caspian." Damien stepped out from behind my old desk, pointing a chrome pistol directly at my chest. He looked different. disheveled, unhinged, with the desperate gleam of a man who had nothing left to lose. I've been planning this moment all week. You humiliated me in front of the board, cost me everything I worked for. Now it's time for payback. He gestured toward a manila folder on the desk. Sign those papers transferring Torres Construction back to me permanently. Then get on your knees and apologize for ruining my life. The gas smell was overwhelming now, making my eyes water and my head spin. I glanced around the room and noticed something that made my blood freeze. The ventilation grates had been sealed shut with duct tape, and I could hear the steady hiss of gas flowing from somewhere behind the walls. You're not planning to let us go, are you? I said, stalling for time while calculating how many minutes had passed since I'd sent Carmen that text. Maybe 8 or 9 minutes. I needed to keep Damien talking. His laugh was maniacal. Let you go? Oh, Caspian, you really don't understand. This whole building is going to be a tragic accident. Gas leak. Terrible explosion, father and daughter both killed trying to negotiate with a desperate man. By the time the fire department sorts through the rubble, all of Warren's evidence will be ash, and I'll be long gone with a new identity. That's when I realized the full scope of his madness. This wasn't just revenge. It was his escape plan. With me dead and all evidence destroyed, he could disappear and start over somewhere else. The only problem, I said, edging closer to Sophia's chair, is that you're still here too. How exactly do you plan to survive your own gas explosion? For just a split second, uncertainty flickered across his face, and that was all the opening I needed. I lunged forward, tackling him around the waist, and sending us both crashing into the filing cabinets. The gun flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. Damien was younger and desperate, but I was fighting for my daughter's life. We rolled across the floor, throwing punches and grappling for control. Behind us, I heard Sophia making muffled sounds through her tape, and when I glanced over, I saw her working frantically to free her hands from the ropes. Dad, look out. Sophia's voice rang clear. She'd gotten the tape off her mouth. Damien had grabbed a letter opener from the scattered desk supplies and was swinging it toward my ribs. I caught his wrist just in time, and we struggled over the makeshift weapon. That's when the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard filled the building. Police sirens getting louder by the second. Exactly 15 minutes had passed, and Carmen had followed the plan perfectly. No, Damien screamed, realizing his perfect crime was falling apart. You called them, you ruined everything. The office door burst open as Detective Anderson and 2 uniformed officers charged in, weapons drawn. Drop the weapon. Get on the ground now. Damien released the letter opener and raised his hands, his face contorting with rage and defeat. As the officers handcuffed him, I rushed to Sophia and finished untying her ropes. Carmen appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face as she ran to embrace us both. We need to evacuate immediately, Anderson shouted over the growing hiss of gas. This whole floor is about to blow. We ran for the stairs, Carmen clutching Sophia, while I helped Anderson drag the handcuffed Damien. We'd just reached the parking lot when Torres Construction erupted in a massive fireball that lit up the Denver skyline. Damien lay on the asphalt, burned and broken, but alive to face justice. As I held my family tight watching my company burn, I realized I'd never been happier to lose a building in my life. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of our brand new headquarters on 17th Street, watching the morning sun stream through floor-to-ceiling windows that replaced the old brick walls of our destroyed building. The gleaming steel and glass structure rose 12 stories into the Denver sky, a testament to resilience and rebirth. Above the main entrance, elegant letters spelled out Torres and Carmen Construction, a name that honored the woman who'd sacrificed everything to keep our family together. The decision to make Carmen my full business partner wasn't just symbolic. Over the past half year, she'd thrown herself into learning every aspect of construction management, taking courses at the University of Colorado, Denver, and earning her contractor's license. The woman who once apologized for not understanding business finances now reviewed budgets with the precision of a seasoned executive. She'd transformed from a frightened victim into a formidable businesswoman who commanded respect in every boardroom she entered. Dad, look at this. Sophia's excited voice echoed through our new conference room as she spread architectural drawings across the table. At 13, my daughter had developed a passion for building design that rivaled my own. The trauma of her kidnapping had been replaced by an unshakable confidence and a dream of becoming an architect. She spent weekends at construction sites wearing a hard hat and asking our foreman detailed questions about structural engineering. The scared, isolated girl Damien had tried to break was now a vibrant teenager with plans to change Denver's skyline. Justice had been swift and decisive for Damien Cross. The evidence Warren provided, combined with the attempted murder charges from our final confrontation, resulted in a 25-year federal prison sentence. The judge had been particularly harsh, noting that Damien's crimes represented a calculated betrayal of family trust that strikes at the heart of human decency. He would spend the next quarter-century in a maximum security facility with no possibility of parole. But this story isn't really about revenge or justice. It's about the unbreakable bonds of family and the power of hope to overcome even the darkest circumstances. For 5 years, I lay unconscious while evil took root in my home, but love proved stronger than hatred. Carmen's sacrificial devotion kept me alive. Sophia's courage helped her survive psychological torture. Warren's guilt ultimately led him to redemption and helped us reclaim our lives. Standing in our new building, surrounded by the family I'd almost lost forever, I understood something profound about the nature of success. Torres Construction had always been about creating solid foundations, for buildings, for careers, for communities. But the most important foundation I'd ever built wasn't made of concrete and steel. It was made of trust, sacrifice, and unconditional love. Today, Carmen and I work side by side, building not just structures, but a legacy for Sophia. Our daughter talks excitedly about joining the family business someday, bringing fresh ideas and youthful energy to continue our mission. The Torres name will endure stronger than ever. If you're facing your own impossible circumstances, remember this. No matter how dark things seem, no matter how powerful your enemies appear, never underestimate the strength that comes from fighting for the people you love. Family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who stand by you when everything falls apart and help you rebuild from the ashes. The human spirit is remarkably resilient. With hope, determination, and the support of those who matter most, you can overcome any obstacle and create something beautiful from even the most devastating loss. Don't give up. Your comeback story is waiting to be written. Looking back on this journey, I realize how close I came to losing everything that truly mattered. For 5 years, I lay unconscious while my family suffered in silence. Don't make my mistake. Don't assume your loved ones are safe just because you trust the people around them, and never underestimate how evil can disguise itself as help. This true story taught me that God has a way of bringing us home when we're needed most. I believe the Lord guided my miraculous awakening at exactly the right moment, just as He guides all of us through our darkest hours. Sometimes what looks like coincidence is actually divine intervention working in our lives. The Damien situation reminded me that evil often wears a familiar face, but God sees everything, and justice always finds its way to those who prey on the innocent. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're reminders that family bonds can never truly be broken, no matter how much time passes or how dire circumstances become. When I saw Sophia afraid of her own grandfather, I understood the true cost of my absence. But God's love has a way of healing even the deepest wounds. This true story could have ended tragically if I'd awakened even weeks later. The greatest blessing wasn't reclaiming Torres Construction, it was hearing Sophia call me Grandpa with genuine love in her voice. These grandpa stories remind us that being present is the most precious gift we can give our families. If this true story touched your heart, please share your own family experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that celebrate the unbreakable bonds of family love. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.